here, and today I wanted to respond to a question about spawn camping because this is a misconception that I know a lot of players have. And even though this is a short one, we can give some good examples, we can cover it. I thought it would be useful to do so. So there is a common misconception among the lower ranks in Overwatch that spawn camping is bad or spawn camping is overextending. It's only overextending if you get punished, and getting punished isn't what most people think it is. So we'll start with this and I'll go ahead and respond to it. Overextending when rolling enemy teams. Okay, so there's occasionally that match where you just roll the enemy team and you can just camp them at their spawn, and I wanted to ask, is this a good idea? To just overextend, is it overextending? And camp them, or should you still stay back? Usually when this happens, my team will overextend and get eliminations, but I'll usually stay back. Is this the right choice? So the immediate answer to this part right here is no, it's wrong. The immediate answer without going any further, but we are going to go further, is no, it's wrong to stay back when your team is going forward and playing in a new place. Because if your team goes forward as 4 people, as 5 people, whatever, they are much, much more likely to be successful if they instead have 6 people in play and not 4 people or 5 people, depending on what it is. If you can go up there and turn 4 people into 5, that's great. If you can go up there and turn 5 people into 6, that's even better. But that's definitely what you want to do. And we're going to get into, generally speaking, why, but the basic reason for that is they're going to be more successful if there's more people out there. And you pulling back and going, no, I don't want to overextend, I don't want to be wrong, doesn't actually help you win the game. And the reason it doesn't help you win the game is if we pull out this, let's just use this here. Let's say your team is spawn camping and they're mostly playing right here, and you're playing, I don't know, McCree, and you go, no, that's not a good place to play, that's overextending, I'm going to play back here. Well, if your team then loses, and loses because you're not helping them with their spawn camp here, where they're trying to control this spawn entrance and this spawn entrance, because these turn into spawn entrances after the attacking team has taken point A, then what ends up happening is they lose, and maybe you get out, maybe you don't get out, but you not getting eliminated up here with the rest of your team does not allow your team to take the next fight any sooner. You getting out alive is like, well, the other team didn't get 200 ult charge out of me from taking down a 200 HP hero, or whatever the case may be. That is absolutely not a good takeaway here. You have massively decreased their odds of success, and you have, the benefit that you got was they didn't get a little bit more ult charge. It doesn't mean you get to take the next fight sooner, because you're not going to take the next fight until the 4 people, the 5 people that got eliminated up here are respawned, which means you have to back up and wait for them, and you still don't go to do this hold that you wanted to do when the rest of your team wanted to do that. You still end up having to make your next hold, say, back here or up here, something that you didn't want to do that isn't as strong as the hold you could have had up here. And you might not like that, but guess what? It's going to happen regardless. So definitely the short answer to your question is do play forward with your team. But we get into the more complicated answer of why in general spawn camping is not a bad play, and you should not be like, oh, my team is throwing when they spawn camp. And this applies to ladder and organized play. Spawn camping is much more methodical and better in organized play than it is in ladder, don't get me wrong, but we are going to go over it. And for those of you that have questions, you can go ahead and throw those up in chat. I will get to them. I don't expect this one to take too long, so throw them up. I will catch up on them. If you want to interrupt me, you can do a super chat, and I'll stop and deal with your question, your comment right away. But otherwise, I'm going to sort of get through the concepts and why spawn camping is good in some situations, in many situations, in fact. Also, if you're liking the video, please do like, consider subscribing if you haven't. But what we look at here is spawn camping gets what I would call 3 main benefits. And the first benefit is you can actually get an extra team fight. So if I pull up Stat Banana here, this is a pretty common spawn camp location where, let's say red team is attacking, they won the first point, they unlocked it, they got up to here, maybe they pushed the cart here, they get wiped, they go back to spawn. And now, blue team, because they were, won 2 fights in a row, did whatever they had to, they're able to go set up here. And red team is now in a bit of a pickle, because if we go back to our Overwatch map here, it's a little hard to see with the doors open, but the main exits here are going to be, they can come out here, which puts them here, or they can come out here, which puts them here, or lastly, oh no, it is just those two for this one? I thought we had the third one in this. Oh no, there we go. We can come out, no, I guess that one's not an option. Okay, so they're really limited in where they can come out. And that's not super good for them. I thought they had another entrance over there. Doesn't really matter. They're really limited in where they can come out, and all the places that they can come out are easily controlled by a team that has properly set up here. And you'll notice this is not representing organized play here. I've put comps up here that are not very good. Okay, cool. If they come out here, they can just get dropped on and run over. If they come out here, again, this team can pretty quickly adjust and not let them out, and they have to push into a choke. To get out of their own spawn, they have to push into a choke. That's not very good. So that would be an example of a spawn point that this spawn camp absolutely makes sense. Hey, cool. But what you're generally looking at is, let's pretend that this spawn camp is a little worse, or let's say that this spawn camp is worse than holding here. And I'm just going to grant that. I'm just going to say, hey, this spawn camp over here, whether it's true or not, is worse than holding something like this, where you go, okay, we're holding this nice choke here, and this choke is this right here, which is a pretty devastating choke. It's not unbeatable, but it's a pretty devastating choke. It's the early hold for second point. Okay, so we'll call this like 100 in value. If your team is here and setting up around this choke, we'll call this 100 in value. But then, if you lose this team fight, your next team fight, and let's say you have like 50-50 odds, or it's a really good choke, so let's say you have 60-40 odds of holding this one for each individual fight. Great, great. Your next team fight, because you're only going to get two, is going to be right back here. And you'll also notice, even if you win this team fight repeatedly up here, you're only going to be allowed 2 losses on this point. The cart isn't ever really going to roll back while you're fighting the attacking team around this choke. The cart is basically going to be here. It's not going to roll back unless it had previously gotten much deeper and then you set up here. But mostly it's not going to roll back, and you're only going to get 2 fights, and hey, that's kind of annoying. If you spawn camp this team, you can potentially get yourself or allow your team an extra fight loss, because while you're here, the cart is rolling back, though it could do that in situations where you'd reset up at that choke when the cart was further along. But you also get the situation where even if the cart is just right here, right now, and we are spawn camping this team right here, what's going to happen is, yeah, eventually they're going to beat us. And when they do beat us, cool, that's nice. They have to then go run from here, where they beat us, to the cart, or run from here to the cart. And that might not seem like much, but that is extra travel time before they are actually getting any progress on the objective. And that extra travel time is time that our spawn timers are ticking down, and therefore time that we get to start running back here, and that's great. Adam in Charge with a super chat for $1.99 says, "Hey nerd, take my money. Thank you for great content." You are most certainly welcome, Adam in Charge. Thank you for that $1.99 super chat saying, "Hey nerd, take my money. Thank you for the great content." And now we're in a thank you war. Okay, there you go. So the defending team is getting to do some of their run back time or some of their respawn time while the cart isn't even being pushed because they were spawn camping. So that's the first advantage that we really get into. They got to do some of their run back time while that wasn't, while the cart wasn't actually being pushed. And that's even more true if the cart is pushed further up, as well as factoring in greater ability for the cart to roll back. So that's a benefit. We're potentially getting also extra fights like this because of this. So instead of having one 100% strong fight at the choke, we might have like a 70% strong fight right here. And then, usually we'd only get 2 fights on this area. We might get another 70% strong fight right over here. And then another, as a result, third defensive fight that we're allowed to get because we are spawn camping that is late and not very good, but 70% strong or so right here. And when I say 70% strong, I just mean because they're not the strongest chokes in the world. This is a reasonably good choke. This is a kind of poor choke. This is an okay choke. This is a reasonably strong choke, actually. This is a good choke, and you're going to end up on some of the worst chokes, as an example. You might be touching at the last second at the end of second point here because you sort of inserted an extra fight by doing your spawn camping there. And another really common place you've seen this historically in Pro Overwatch and even in ladder Overwatch is on Rialto, where it was very common for a time to people just start on spawn. And you've seen it on Route 66, where it's the spawn camp start in trains, because it allows you to force a third fight. And those would be spawn camps on first point, whereas what we're talking about here is a spawn camp after the game has been played out a little bit. You're winning hard enough to go spawn camp. But it's a very similar principle, and that absolutely has value. So that's the first reason, sort of what you do here. The second reason that you spawn camp, we hinted at earlier, and that is map control. Overwatch is incredibly about getting control of the map. If you look at this attacking team here has basically nowhere they can go. They can come out here, they can come out here, even if they could come out over here, whatever. Doesn't matter. They have nowhere to set up angles. If I put both of these teams out here, let's pretend I put this team out on point, for example, and we went, okay, cool, you guys are out on point. Now we have a Junkrat up here. Now we have our Reinhardt plus Anna back here. Now we have our Tracer poking you from over here. We have our Diva threatening you from over here. Maybe we've actually put our Moira over here with this, and we've put this up here. Most people understand that this team is losing. This team is not happy to be on point, totally surrounded by this other team. This is what we call map control. That's not very good. And we can do simpler versions of this where, okay, right now, and let's put Diva up on the statue. Maybe, you know what, let's do a more traditional hold like that. Cool, something like that. Tracer's trying to control over here, and we're like this. Okay, again, this currently blue team has better map control that red team has to push into. Red team can do some things to get some better map control themselves. They can put a Hanzo up here. They can try to go clear this angle to put themselves in a less bad spot. But ultimately, the angle advantage that blue team has, where red team is pushing into blue team, being able to go, no, we're going to threaten you from here, and from here, that sucks. That is a pain to play into. That can make up for man disadvantage. But when you are stuck in we only have a couple ways out and they're not actually very split, which is true here, which is true on things like Route 66, where you come out of that first attacker's spawn, and even though there's multiple exits, they're not very split from each other. There's not great cover between them. So if you're covering one, you can actually cover all of them pretty effectively. In those situations, you don't actually have any map control. So you have to do something about that because you don't have map control. And doing something about that usually means, well, we have to do something. And those somethings are mostly going to fall into, we either have to spend ults to get out of spawn, which is like, okay, you spent ults to beat us. Congratulations. Like, we're totally okay with you spending ults to beat us here, to make us leave. We're actually okay spending ults ourselves to encourage you to spend ults to leave your spawn because we're going to get extra fights like we talked about. Or you're going to do things like swap into other heroes and go, no, forget it. Soldier, swap Bastion real quick and we'll make them leave with Bastion. Well, that might work a little, depending on where we can fall back to. But even if that does work, let's say you swapped into Bastion, maybe you swapped to Bastion Mercy, because before you were on something else, whatever. Doesn't matter. Even if you just swapped into Bastion, okay, that's great. Maybe you're able to make us leave with that, maybe you're not. Well, you just cost yourself some ult charge, and we can fall back to a pretty normal fight here. Oh, cool. What do you know? Or let's say you swapped into Pharmacy, which would be a very common one on Havana. It's very common to see spawn holds on Havana right at there on top of the gas station or using the two spots between the gas station. Very common to see that. And Pharmacy, swapping into Pharmacy as the attackers and then flying up and playing on the roof above spawn is very good for attackers, is one of the ways to break it, as is swapping into like a ball or a tracer to put behind the enemy team. If you guys have seen my Havana map guide, which is on the channel, you guys would already know that. I recommend you check it out. That would be another thing where, oh hey, you guys wanted to play Brawl or you wanted to play Snipers and you've had to change your comp, throw away ult charge, set yourselves back, and then you're either going to have to play a comp that you don't want or swap back out of it, was we gained some ult charge while spawn camping you. You dropped some of that ult charge by swapping out and all those things. So we've covered, you potentially get extra fights, you force the enemy sometimes to spend or give up ults. And lastly, you have map control and they don't, and they really don't like that. So that's what we'd look at. Now, I would point out I am not advocating spawn camping everywhere on every map. Spawn camping does require a little bit of discipline to understand how to cover both of the entrances. For example, we generally wouldn't spawn camp first point on King's Row, even if we were winning, unless you're absolutely stomping on a team, and it's sort of an ego thing. Like, you wouldn't generally spawn camp first point, and the reason for that is first point here has an entrance above it, a window entrance above it, that, hey, there's not good cover for defenders to use around here. I mean, there's okay cover for them to use. You could do it, but this one wouldn't be as strong as it might be on Route 66 because there's that window entrance where it's too easy to swap into a widow up there and actually do work. Whereas a swap into a bastion over here, again, you can back off pretty easily. A swap into a widow up here, something along those lines, pretty quickly turns into, well, we can't really get out. You're going to get picks on us on the way out. We don't really like that. And also, getting picks on us in this situation puts you too close to where you are going to get very quick progress and potentially a cap on this, which is a little different than how the cart works over here. So those are really the main things. And then lastly, we have sort of the objection that you're going to hear. And if I haven't already covered this, what you look at for what you hear as the objection is, oh, you're overextending, or, oh, when my team tries to spawn camp, when my team tries to forward hold, it always fails, and that's bad. Yep. Most of the time, when you try to spawn camp a team, I'll do a more reasonable spawn camp here, the team is going to beat you. Most of the time, when you try to spawn camp a team, the team is going to beat you. I know I just set myself up to be clipped there. Eventually. That's the key word, eventually. If you spawn camp these guys, and even just beat them for 1 or 2 fights, even though they respawn really quickly, only takes them 10 seconds, another 2 seconds to walk out. So each time you beat them, you're only really taking 12 to 14 seconds off the clock. A little bit more in reality, but even though you're only doing that, as opposed to if you beat them out here, you might be taking 15 to 20 seconds off the clock. If you beat them out here, you might be taking 30 seconds off the clock. Even though that's happening, that's perfectly fine. Because guess what? In Overwatch, you do eventually lose. You just eventually lose fights. If the ladder is doing its job at all with MMR, with SR, you have roughly equal opponents, and you should lose about half of the team fights. Now, it doesn't always work out that way, but in general, when you're playing Overwatch, you lose about half of your team fights. So yeah, if you play up here, you're going to lose at some point. You're also going to lose at some point if you play over here. So anytime anyone says, oh, but we always lose when we overextend, yes. And it might feel like you lost faster, but that's because the enemies are respawning faster, which is not a bad thing. Those are still teamfight wins. That's still taking time off the clock. But remember, you would have lost back here too. You weren't going to full hold them here. You aren't going to full hold them here. Could you full hold them here? Absolutely. Could you full hold them here? Yes. Yes, you could. But generally speaking, yeah, if you go forward and play forward, you're going to lose. Just like if you play back, you're going to lose a team fight at some point. That's just how it works, so don't let that be an objection. It's sort of a fallacy that people come up with. Like, oh, I tried spawn camping before and it didn't work. Did it really not work, or did you not understand what it was accomplishing? Is your reason that it didn't work that you eventually lost a team fight? Well, I certainly hope that you eventually lost a team fight. Spawn camping is pretty good in Overwatch, but it's not like punishing of like you're eliminating heroes before they can move type eliminating. Remember, it's not BM to spawn camp, by the way. It's not BM to spawn camp because people have the safe zone in their spawn where you legit actually can't hurt them. And good spawn camps don't actually stand right here where they can be shot from that safe zone. They stand in spots much more like this, where they can go, we can break line of sight on you here, we can break line of sight on you here, and as soon as you run out, we can collapse on you. And I did this with Brawl examples, but we could do this with other types. It works much the same. If we were doing this with dive heroes, it would be a situation where, hey, the dive heroes mostly have to come out here and here, but we've been able to pre-spread out our team to control the lanes. So they try to come out, and there's a Zen back here. There's already a Tracer controlling over here. There's a D.Va controlling up here, and oh, we can instantly collapse on them type thing. Or oh, they were over here, our Tracer can adjust in here pretty darn quickly, as can our Diva, and oh, our Winston was here from the get-go and is zapping. Or our Hammond was here from the get-go and can jump and hit his pile drive, all those things. So that's what we're looking at. I don't really have more I need to get into on this. I think this answers the question. I think this tells you guys, why spawn camping is good if your team can execute it. I think this covers why some people go, oh, it's bad, and they're wrong, and you don't really care. And then I guess the last thing would be, but can we do this on ladder, or is this organized play only? Well, that question can really be avoided because it doesn't matter what the answer to that question is if your team is trying to do it, you have to support it. I actually think the answer is yes, and the answer is even more yes as you go up the ladder. I don't just think that. That is true more as you go up the ladder. But the reality is, even if your silver team, even if your gold team has 3 people trying to spawn camp, you better support it. Has 4 people trying to forward hold ahead of the choke that you'd like them to hold at, you better go support it. I would much rather that 4 be 5. That's going to work much better. And if it becomes 5, maybe the last person will be, will come along because they'll go, oh, okay, fine, whatever. I see everyone else is doing it. Maybe they'll bandwagon. Okay, so now I'm going to catch up on chat, and let's see what we have there. Okay, doesn't the nature of spacing dictate you should push as far in, so even if you wipe, you can contest more space? Exactly. You both get map control by doing so, or more accurately, in some ways, you get map control, but more importantly, you deny them map control. You don't let them have a foothold on the map, which is quite helpful. And also, you potentially get more fights, because, yeah, the way it works, you respawn, you get to hide some of your respawn time in them running to the objective, which is great for you. Not on their spawn door, but the absolute nearest choke, like on Control Center Lijiang. Yep. If you fight on point and lose, you allow them to spawn camp. If we fight on point and lose, you allow them to spawn camp or play at the nearest choke. If you lose the next fight at their door, you can prevent losing as much space. Yeah, Lijiang Tower Control Center could be a good example. And any control point could be a good example. We could talk about ruins. We could talk about any of them. If you go forward and hold as far forward as you can, not necessarily actually touching their spawn door, though you can. You can absolutely. Again, I said this wasn't a particularly good spawn hold up here, but you can do things where you go, we're spawn camping you. Like maybe we started in here with an ambush where we hit everyone in here and we ambushed you and wiped you out with speed boost as you were coming out, and then we're just going to chill in here for the next one because you know we're here, we know that you're here, but there's nothing you can do about it, and as soon as you actually leave and take a few steps out of spawn, we're going to try to run over you again type thing. Like that could be a thing. This isn't a terribly strong one, but that sort of thing can be a thing. And if you wipe us here, we might be able to make it back in time to contest this before it's 3 points ticked. Now, that's not really true on this one. It's not a good enough recontest. But on King of the Hill, that tends to be true. You go do a forward spawn. I'm just using this map because this is what we're on. You do a forward hold. You do that. You make your hold at the choke, which tends to be better in King of the Hill than the point anyway. Points aren't generally very defendable. There's some exceptions. There's many exceptions, actually, but the points, like Ruins would be an example, where the point isn't really a very good place to defend from at all. It's on low ground. It's all sorts of ugly. But in front of it, there's 2 different sets of chokes, and you could use the further up set of choke, or you could get closer to their spawn and spawn camp them. And that's perfectly fine. And then, if they wipe you, there's still a pretty good chance you can make it back for a less good fight. It's a rushed fight where you're really running to touch the point in time, but you can still get back with a good 5 or 6 people or a good 4 people, and then the last 2 are late type thing, and take a second fight there before it flips and delay the flip. So absolutely. Adam says, I've always thought in the logistics of taking space, you should try to lose your team fights as close to their spawn as possible if you have to lose. As long as the objective isn't moving, yes. What about control points? If we lose the fight and they get so much ult charge and usually aren't able to win it again, but that's just my experience with it. Well, then you're using your ults wrong. What about control points? If we lose the fight, they get so much ult charge and usually aren't able to win it again, but that's just my experience with it. I mean, is that different than what would happen on the point? Like, I would look at this and go, if we look at one like this, and again, I know I'm not on a control point here, it's just not what I loaded up, but if you do a forward hold here, let's go back here. Yeah, we can do this. Settings, maps, and let's get ourselves a control point. And we can go over to... What are we going to consider spawn camping sort of becomes the issue. But let's go here.
Traveling to Nepal.
Okay, so we just ended up on this map. I don't really care. This isn't the best map. It's not actually where I'd have preferred to go, to be perfectly honest. But in theory, if you went, hey, we won hard, we won really hard, and now we're going to spawn camp by holding up here, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Usually you wouldn't push this far forward on this map because the point is actually pretty good. Let me see if I can find another point here. Yeah, we'll go up here. This is something that people would consider closer to spawn camping. Oh, am I wrong? Oh, I can't do it in this mode. Okay, so I'm stuck on this map. That's fine. Let's no, it's not fine. Let's swap it to a map that's going to work a little bit better for that. None of them are huge deals, but sure. Night stream it is, Semitic. Night stream it is. Ruins, something we were just talking about. Holding the point sucks. Holding this choke is a little bit better. Holding this choke is even better. And if you want to push up and hold up here, hold up around this, not a big deal. You can absolutely do it. You can absolutely do that. And if you then lose while you're holding around this terrain, because remember, the exits that this team has is they can go through here. Okay, cool. That works. And then what? They can also go out through here? Okay, that's a little bit of a different entrance, but if you're holding here-ish and you're aware of that entrance, you can mostly punish both of those entrances pretty well. You can't fully punish that one. They have some level of safety up there, but you can hop up there. You can send dive heroes up here, shoo them down, or just break this with line of sight and go, okay, we're going to hide back here, and then we're going to run over you as soon as you drop type thing. Or we're going to hide here, and we're going to run over you as soon as you drop. That's going to work perfectly fine. So you're saying you lose, if you lose up here, you lose so much ult charge. Don't lose up here. And if that's really been a problem for you, after you lose one or two people, after you've lost one or two people, the spawn hold is generally over. Because even if you're going, nope, we won the rest of the fight and there's 4 of us alive, your 2 people are going to take forever to get back and theirs aren't. So you just back up your remaining people and go, can we fight here? No, this one isn't good enough. Our people aren't back yet. Okay, we'll just fight here. Cool. And maybe we'll fight here with 4 people using the strong choke, whatever, because now we have a stronger choke, and that'll buy more time for our people to rejoin us. If you're finding you're losing too many people, you probably don't know when to, or they're then rolling you with ults too hard. Again, if they roll you with ults here, I don't care, because then they're spending their ults. But if you find they're beating you in the neutral here, and then have ults, and then are rolling the rest of the map, I'd say you're using your ults wrong, but I'd also say you can break the spawn hold after you've lost a person or two, because you don't expect it to work anymore. Blah says so much Omnic hate on King's Row. Okay. Oh, did I miss another super chat? My bad. Adam in charge for $4.99 says, did legit RC spawn camp you in the Overbowl? I heard he mixed in a few tactical crouches on you too. Pretty smart guy, if you ask me. For those that don't know, Adam is my resident troll. I seem to have many trolls. Adam is one of my resident trolls. I think he's got the crown right now, though. And legit RC was the coach for the Atlanta Academy when I was working with Phase 2. And Atlanta Academy crushed absolutely everyone that season, including many Overwatch League teams. Many Overwatch League teams. Many times. They were one of the best Overwatch teams in the world. Okay. So he's going to troll me. We're good. We're having that one. Once again, Adam in charge for $4.99 saying, did legit RC spawn camp you in the Overbowl? I heard he mixed in a few tactical crouches on you too. Pretty smart guy, if you ask me. And, you know, hey, legit RC must be a pretty smart guy. That Atlanta Academy team was amazing. No qualms about that. Okay. Havana spawn camps. Those are fun. What's the reaction to Tracer Sombra trying to sneak the cart past in this scenario? Do you just run back as 6 and give up the spawn camp? It depends. So the real answer is you try not to let them out in the first place. Obviously, you can't not let a Sombra out. That's a little bit different. But then you've created a situation where, hey, they've swapped. They've swapped to a hero they weren't on before. They probably had to give up some ult charge to do that. That has some benefit to you. So the answer to that is yes. If that breaks your spawn camp, that's fine. You run back, and you're probably going to run back as 6 to go do that. And that's fine. You might run partway back as 6 to a more reasonable choke, a choke where you can more appropriately reinforce the cart, but then have sort of one person watch the cart for a little bit. You know, maybe a Lucio player with the cart. Lucio's not actually going to get in trouble most of the time, and if they start to lose, you can then further send back your own Diva, Tracer, whatever to deal with them. Or send back your Tracer, and then maybe you reinforce with your Lucio or with a Harmony Orb if they start to get in trouble, that sort of thing. So yes, the correct answer, and that's fine. We talked about the Bastion way of breaking a spawn camp, but yes, the other option is, hey, they break it by swapping into someone who can get behind you and does get behind you, and you're not able to punish them. And if they're able to get people behind you, frequently they are going to be able to break the spawn camp. Mercedes says, just tuned in. Your Reddit comment says, yes, every spawn has multiple exits, but no, they aren't always good enough or separated enough to matter. And I'm wondering how to tell which points are better to spawn camp on. How many exits do they have? Some are going to have 3. Ones with 3 are going to be harder to spawn camp than ones with 2. What is relevant in terms of the objective? We talked about King's Row first, and in general, I would say hybrid maps, especially hybrid maps with close attacker spawn. So Numbani does not have a particularly close attacker spawn. Spawn points with close, like capture points. So capture points that you have to worry about that are close to the attacker spawn aren't particularly good for spawn camping. So that's Numbani, that's King's Row. Excuse me, that's not Numbani. But that is King's Row, for example. Those aren't going to be particularly good. As you add a third entrance, that becomes worse for spawn camping, though not the end of the world. And then when you get the vertical ones, where it's like, wait, they have an exit up there that oversees us and can punish us pretty hard for spawn camping them. And yes, they still have to make a hero swap, but it's fish in a barrel for them at that point. So you have that on King's Row, and you have that on another map or two as well, where that comes into effect. So really what you're looking for is spawn camping them when your spawn camp breaks? Are they instantly going to be able to meaningfully cap a point? Not, hey, they got some capture progress. That we don't care about. But are they going to be able to actually cap something? So not so much an issue on Numbani, where the spawn is actually relatively far away, would be an issue on King's Row, would be an issue on Volskaya Industries, Anubis, 2 CP maps, where if you tried to spawn camp them and they break it, they're going to be able to cap the first point there. So 2 CP and first point of hybrids, where the attacker spawn are close, aren't particularly good, and then when they have a vertical exit that gives them good oversight, and you don't have good cover against that vertical exit, would be another indicator of not a particularly good thing to spawn camp. Good things to spawn camp are things where they have like 2 entrances. These are great, and the 2 entrances really don't have cover against each other. And again, I went with a premier example right here. Another premier example of this would be Havana, where they actually have a third entrance on Havana, but none of the entrances are all that different from each other. They're on different sides of a building, sure, but 2 of them are really close to each other, and the third, well, it's kind of far from the first, is pretty darn close and really not that different from the second. And you will notice Rialto is one of those that has a vertical one, and that's why a compromise has to be made. And fortunately, Rialto is a full payload map, not a hybrid map, so if you drop it there when you're spawn camping, you can still get your 3 fights if you're disciplined in coming back. Route 66, you can get your 3 fights if you're disciplined in coming back, but Rialto has that high ground, and that is why sometimes some coaches are like, no, we do not want the 3 fights on this, we do not want the spawn camp, because it's just too brutal, it's just too easy to break, and I'm of this opinion. It is too easy to break spawn camps on Rialto with that with that vertical spawn door there. Even though, yes, you get a third fight. Temporal is unstable. He's losing it. He's completely lost. Thank you, Adam in Charge. And then we follow up with the super chat there. You were on the ground defeated. Where you belong. Okay. Hey, Sulak. Hey, Carolina. Isn't that a team thing about using Ultron more than an individual mistake? Right. In response to El Arce, or who was it? In response to your own, in your response to your own comment, it looks like about your team, the other team getting ult charge. Yeah. Well, temporal is poor, so think about that line. Okay. Okay. Val says, imagine being a new viewer and the first thing you learn about temporal is he lost to legit RC. Okay. He should have won then. Okay, let's see if this gets back remotely to topic. If not, the trolling's fine, but the trolling probably makes more sense in the more standard videos. Not that I mind the trolling here, I really don't. I'm just not gonna read it all aloud. The team cheated. They were on white powder. Okay. Don't lose. How's that Masters climb, Adam? Ooh, Ellark taking the shots at Adam. Ah. Adam's throwing a few tomatoes. Okay. Okay. I'll give you guys another moment to get any questions up there related to spawn camping, related to Overwatch, related to other life stuff, I suppose. Whatever the case may be. Other than that, as I give you time to get comments up there, if you enjoy this type of comment, please do like and drop a comment letting me know that, hey, you like this type of thing, or what sort of topic you'd like covered next, because I do sort of go around dispelling some of these myths. The myths of spawn camping is overextending, the myth of don't stagger in scrims. I can go dispel more myths if you guys have things that you'd like me to look at, things like that. Leave that in the comments. Like if you haven't. Consider subscribing. And finally, do consider joining the Discord in the description below to see private coaching that we do, but also to see, hey, what sort of topics we're covering. If you want to be here for these discussions live, you can see the topic that we're covering, get that ping if you would like, and then be here to ask questions. All that. Or to tell me I'm wrong, or even be here to troll me like Adam is doing. Adam in Charge, super chat for 199, says, thanks for the great content. Love you, coach. Best one. Okay, he's flipping back and forth today. That's okay. Temporal sucks and great video. There we go. That's the comment. You know what? Everyone who got this far in the video should probably comment. No, I don't know that that wouldn't just get removed, actually. I wouldn't remove it, but I don't know that that wouldn't get removed. I kind of want to pay homage to that one right there. Thank you, coach. Okay. You enjoy these new videos. Happy to hear it, Carolina. Temporal, any cooking tips for the winter? Playing cold seems to be a disadvantage. That I probably don't have for you, Val. I can do tips when it comes to Overwatch. I can do tips when it comes to, finance, dating, college, work, school, cooking. I can cook. I'm perfectly fine at cooking. I can do more than what I guess would be the sad bachelor basics of like, oh, you can cook pasta and do scrambled eggs and things like that. Like, don't get me wrong, I have some great stuff I can cook, but I would not consider myself a premier chef either. So, probably not the answer there for Overwatch. I know. You want to know what foods you can cook to be better at Overwatch. And maybe we'll have on someone. Maybe we'll have on someone who's a little more in the nutritional specialist field for that at some point in the future. But I don't think I have that answer for you right now, Val. Hey, can you win an Overwatch tournament? Thank you, Adam. Thank you for that final bit of trolling. Okay, we'll go ahead and call it there. Thanks, guys. Temporal out.